testing and commissioning drainage systems. So at the end of this part of the session, I want you all to be able to explain how to carry out a soundness test and a performance test. Recognise all the tools used for soundness testing and performance testing. So commissioning. As with most other systems, sanitary pipework needs to be brought into operation as part of the commissioning process. Firstly, as with our other commissioning processes, we would give the pipework a visual inspection. We'd then test it for soundness, and finally we carry out a performance test to check it works the way that it should do. We're going to look at how to do each of these now. So a visual inspection, we would visually inspect the pipework, check that it's adequately supported, it's got the proper number of clips, and it's laid to the correct fall. We'd check that the pipe lengths were appropriate and within the maximum distances, and also we'd need to check all the traps were full before testing the pipework. Soundness testing is carried out in line with the requirements of BSE and 12056, and this means blanking off all the open ends with drain plugs. These plugs here, you turn the handle on them, and that actually causes the rubber to be compressed, and that can squash out then and block up the pipe. We'd also need to make sure that we fill up all the traps with water to make sure that the air can't escape that way when we carry out our test. If you can't access the pipe with a drain plug, we could use an inflatable test balloon like you can see on the left there, which we would insert through an access pipe and then inflate. So it's useful to run a little bit of water down on top of the balloon, and that can help keep it airtight. So once the test's been made airtight, once the system's made airtight, we can then start the test. We'd fit a test nipple, like this one up in the top left here, on one of the drain plugs, and then you'd connect a manometer, onto the test nipple via a rubber hose. You can see all of the tools required for that here. You can see we've got a sort of Y piece there, which would have three rubber tubes connected onto it. One would go into the manometer, one would go into the hand bellows, and one would go into the test nipple, and then you'd sort of pump up the pressure using the hand bellows just here. So this is an example here showing a test taking place. You've got the test bag there at the base, which is being pumped up with a hand pump. All the traps are filled up with water, and the system's blanked off with the drain plug at the top, which we have a manometer connected to. We'd pump it up to 38 millimeters of pressure with air, and there should be no drop in pressure over the 3-minute test period. If there is a leak, the best way to do it is with leak detection spray. If it's a cast iron stack, you could use smoke pellets, you could use smoke, but you must never ever do that with plastic pipework, because it can damage the plastic. The smoke will damage the plastic. Yeah, with plastic pipework, so majority of the time, if there is a leak, just use the hand bellows to pump up the pressure, and then go around and put leak detection spray on the joints, and that will show you where the leak is, essentially. Now, once the soundness test's done and you've got no drop in pressure, when you carry that out over the 3-minute test period, we then do performance testing. Performance testing is there to check that we're not losing our trap seals, essentially, and that's done under what's known as maximum demand. You'd fill up all of your appliances all the way up to the spillover level, and then let them go, including flushing the toilet, and then that way we know that there's possible to be water flowing through that drainage system. And then we'd go around and we'd check all the traps afterwards. So we'd check the trap seal depths, and we'd use a dipstick, like you can see just here, dip into the trap, check what the depth of seal is. Remember, the depth of seal isn't all the way from the top of the water level to the base of the trap, it's just from this point here up to the top of the water level, and that's our depth of seal. And we should have at least 25 mil depth of seal left over after we've carried out the performance test. And you carry out the performance test 3 times. Go and check each trap seal 3 times. Fill it up, let it go, fill it up, let it go, fill it up, let it go 3 times to check that the system works in a similar sort of way every time, and it leaves a depth of seal of at least 25 mil. So that means on a lot of these traps which have got a normal depth of seal of 75 mil, you're allowed to lose up to 50 mil of that depth, as long as you've got the remaining 25 mil left over after carrying out the performance test. So each of the tests we've discussed will be carried out in accordance to BSE 1256, but it's also worth making sure that, or being aware that actually sometimes we might be required to carry out a soundness test or a performance test as part of maintenance, and that would be planned in a maintenance schedule, and the results would be recorded in a maintenance record. Okay. So that's the end of part 1.